and welcome to the Finnish Institute in Stockholm and to this art talk called Art, Body and Gender. My name is Hanna Tapio and I work here at the Institute as Head of Arts, and I'm going to moderate this talk. Today we will discuss gender and its influence on art and the art field. And with me here today I have three wonderful panelists. The first one is a Finnish artist, Illusia Juvani, who is participating in the talk via video connection from Finland. Hello and welcome, Illusia.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And then we have another Finnish artist, Hinni Huttunen. You live and work here in Stockholm and you are live here at the Institute with us today. Welcome, Hinni.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
And then our third panelist is art curator and art intendant at the Haninge Konsthall, Guarino Werner. Welcome, Sarah.
Hello, thank you very much. It's so nice to be here.
And during this art talk, we will deal with questions such as how artists' creative work and curating of exhibitions are influenced by artist or curator's gender and gender identity. And we will also bring up questions of diversity in the art field and how different body types are represented in the art today. But before we start, could you, Illusia, Hinni and Sarah, present yourself very shortly so that all the viewers get to know you a little bit before we start? And maybe Illusia, if you could begin.
Yes, hi, my name is Illusia Juvani. I am queer, non-binary artist and activist, I guess. I work with video, photography, text, sound, objects, and usually revolving around my personal interests such as feminism, death, lust, fatness, and gender, to name a few. And my pronouns are they, them.
Thank you. And then Hinni.
Hello everyone, my name is Hinni Huttunen. I'm a visual artist and I work with video and photography. I work mainly with video and photography, and my main theme is self-portraiture, and I am interested in how different images feel for the viewer, if you feel sad or happy when you're looking at that, and effects of the image.
Thank you. And Sarah.
Hello, yes, I'm Sarah Guarino Werner and I work as a curator at Haninge Konsthall. That is a municipal art hall in the southern parts of Stockholm. And as a curator, I take care of the exhibitions that we show. But as a municipal art hall, we're somehow the citizens of Haninge's art hall. So I have to deal both with that and my own, of course, as a curator, and I think in this setting, I think I might say that I identify as her and I identify as a lesbian as well.
Yeah, thank you. Well, then we can start our art talk, and we can start with a quite wide question that concerns gender. It would be interesting to hear that in which different ways your gender influences your creative work and you as an artist or curator. Let's start with the artists. Who wants to start? Maybe Illusia?
Yeah, well, gender, well, it's not something I can or want to escape, as it is part of what makes me me, so it's automatically affects the art that I do, obviously. But I'm interested in the stereotypes of the gender binary because I sort of see them as a playground for me to wreak havoc. And to me, that's fun. It's kind of punching up punching up, and yeah. I guess because I am non-binary, the outsiderness of not belonging to that system, and it helps me to be kind of critical towards the system, maybe easily.
What about you? What do you think, Hinni?
And the question was, how does my gender affect my artistic practice?
Exactly.
Yes, okay. As the woman who's working with, and also my pronouns are she and her, everyone else also told those. I'm a woman who works with self-portraits, so of course it is a woman's image in most of my works. So it's very practically, you can see that in my art, that is often a woman who is portrayed in the images, that is me. And of course it affects, because I am living my life in this society where there are different norms for different genders. Of course it affects how I live my life and what kind of expectations there are. So of course I have to also face those in my artistic practice, I guess. In those ways, for example.
Yeah. And when it comes to you, Sarah, you are a curator and an intendant at the Municipal Art Hall, Haninge Konsthall. So what kind of role does gender play in your work? It would be interesting to hear if you need to follow some guidelines, for example, when it comes to the diversity and selection of artists and exhibitions.
Yes, as belonging to the municipality, of course, it's very important for us that all the citizens should feel, that it's their space and that they're represented somehow. And I think it's a well-known fact within the municipality. But then, of course, you always somehow start from yourself, and even as a curator, am maybe interested of those questions. I still start from myself somehow, and maybe forgot to work with people of color, or there are so many minorities somehow that should be seen in the art space. But I wouldn't say that I have it's not like a 50-50 guideline that I have to follow in regard to women, men, or non-binary people, and so. But a few years ago, the art space where I didn't work there at the time, was certified by RFSL, the LGBTQI league, maybe let's call it, in Sweden. And in that sense, when you take part of this education somehow, the whole space signs up somehow to work with norms, and see how different norms intermingle, and it's both for the people actually working in the space, that everybody should feel safe, but it's also in regard to our visitors, and of course then in regard to the exhibitions as well. But I think that's something that I think it's intriguing and interesting. It easily becomes the thing that, this year we should have the LGBT exhibition, and we usually have this Rainbow Week, for example, at work, and then what? And the rest of the year, is that not, so in that sense, I think, you want to have those aspects in all the stuff you do, and not just pinpoint it as, this week we're working with this queer artist, because I think, you identify as queer, but you are so much more than just that. So to your questions, so somehow I have some guidelines that I should follow, and of course if I do exhibitions just with men, and also I think most people would react, but maybe not that many reacts if I just invite white people, for example. So it's
very interesting.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of also a discussion in relation to the artist, how the invited artist wants to be framed somehow, and so on. Yeah.
And then I'm interested in hearing if your gender has been an asset for you as an artist or curator, or has it had any negative effects? Any experience or points of view? Maybe Illusia, can you start?
Yeah. Again, being non-binary and queer is a huge asset, not just in art, but I think in life in general, because my experience of not belonging to this heteronormative society has been a greatest gift, in a sense that I can clearly see the power structures that exist, as I am not part of them. I have sometimes said that I can almost like see them as a physical thing that I can almost touch or something like that. And because I've never been able to relate to heteronormative BS, and I think it has enabled so much more freedom in my thinking and in my existence, I think. And negatives always, of course, because being part of a gender and sexual minority, there's the societal oppression, of course, the major negative effect on not being something that it's easily defined.
Hinni?
Yes, I agree with Illusia that the rejection of the heteronormativity, it has, as a queer person, it's very freeing. You feel more free to do what you want to do. And then I would also like to, as like in the sense that you asked if there has been some negative effects, I would like to mention, maybe you all know the artwork by Guarino Girls from 1988. That's the poster of advantages of being a woman artist. I think that sums it up very well. It's about not being worried about success, or not being worried about having to choose between family and career, or not being nervous about being in exhibitions with men, for example. I think it's a work that I think it's contemporary now. So it's 30 years old.
It's true. Yeah. What do you say, Sarah?
Yeah, I think I was previously trained as an artist as well, actually. So I think, but during that time, I think I wasn't really out with my queerness, or in that sense. So I think that was a huge change for me as well when I started studying curating and started with that career somehow. That happened at the same time when I started to be out with my sexuality somehow. And so I think that was, as Illusia said, very freeing as well. That I don't know, I think I've always had some kind of issues of not being a proper female, a proper woman somehow. So that was really, I think and then suddenly, as an artist, but as working as a curator, I suddenly didn't have to care that much about myself, but could instead engage with all those other persons doing interesting. It was very, so in that sense, I think it was very liberating and was a little bit like coming home somehow. And my gender, of course, at school and so on, I think I always related to a feminist, idea of that it was important as identifying as a woman, of taking space and so on. Maybe now thinking more out of a queer view, it's not only like woman, but it's part of a lot of other minorities. But yes, I think within municipalities, I must say that I think there's a lot of women working, maybe more than men. I don't know. That may be
a lot of women working.
Yeah, within I think the cultural sector. I don't know if there's more that men end up in the private sector more.
It's an interesting.
I don't know. This is totally unscientific, but yeah.
I think it was really great hearing that this thing that it's freeing and liberating. I think that is just wonderful. And then Hinni and Illusia, you both use yourself and your own bodies in your works a lot. And Hinni, I wonder what kind of representation of women and womanhood would you like to produce or offer to the viewers via your artworks?
Yes, as I've told during this talk before, I work a lot with self-portraiture, and that is something that I have started in the beginning of my art studies. And then while I have started to work with self-portraits, I then quickly, after looking at the self-portraits that I've made, that they differ from the vast majority of images that I face during the day as a fat person in those images. And I have also addressed the theme of fatness in some of my works very directly. And when I'm working directly with that theme, the theme of living in a fat body, I always try to think about that I'm making those works for other fat girls or fat women or fat people. So that has been like that. I'm trying to create those images and those works and videos for someone who can maybe relate to them, and like what kind of images they are longing maybe to see, or what I have wanted to see when I have been maybe a bit younger, or what I still want to see now. So, and I'm trying to like imagine that there's this kind of like solidarity within that, of like the images that I reproduce as a fat girl, that it's like a movement, no, not a movement, but a gesture of solidarity. I'm interested in that, and I'm making the works for other fat people. So that's that question. But of course, there's I think like in creating a representation of womanhood, it's a very big task to do, and I'm not trying to cover all of that, and I'm happy that there's but there's also other kind of images. But those are the ones that I've made for other people.
Great. And Illusia, you as non-binary person, so what kind of representation of gender would you like to, or you wish to produce to the viewers of your art?
I'm very much in the same lane as Hinni, as that I want to represent for fat, queer, non-binary people, like show that this is one possibility, that there can be people like me. But I think for me, the goal is to drive the gender into a conflict or into a crisis, that to show non-binary and queer aesthetics and occupying space for them, and also inventing and displaying what that might be, and to show and talk about gender nonconformity and queerness intrinsically, rather than in relation to cisness and straightness as it's usually viewed and discussed.
Thank you. And Sarah, or do you have any comments to that?
I really agree with both of you. I think it's very interesting, as you say, Illusia, this, this intrinsic way of working. I think that's important.
I think it's so interesting that you also want to make art to other fat people and other people who can relate to these matters, if you understand what I mean, and not just to other world and show like, hey, we can be this way too. Do you understand that you took this aspect that you do to your peers also, and want to empower them maybe?
Yes, I think it was a very important moment for me when I was thinking like, okay, when this work is going to be an exhibition now, and who am I dreaming of? Who is the people who's actually the audience there?
Yeah,
I think that was a good moment in school.
It's really interesting. Well, and Sarah, how important is it to you in your curating of art, and you work as an art intendant, to remember the diversity and a diversity of different gender identities, and to introduce them to public? I'm wondering, like, what kind of power do curators have?
I think you have quite a lot of power somehow, but at the same time, sometimes when you work with your exhibitions in your art space, and you're actually, who is seeing this? Am I actually, reaching the citizens that I wish could see this? But luckily, and I really enjoy this, having the art space in conjunction with the library as we have, because it's a culture house, and then I think there are people that goes there to have a coffee, or maybe to get a book, but might have a little round in the art space as well. And I think that for me, I also wish that young person that feels maybe alone in the world enters the space and sees maybe an artwork that feels empowering, and there are other people like me and so on. But of course, I all the exhibitions I do don't have a queer, aren't queer in that sense. But I think it's very important. But of course, there are other issues to cover as well. But I think it's everything is intermixed. So I think even if you have an exhibition dealing with whatever topic, usually I think you can have a queer, find a queer angle to it. And then of course I think it's very important with the pedagogical, the informative part of the exhibition making as well, which I have colleagues working with, and so you can't always decide what people actually feel and see when they encounter an artwork, but I think art has the power to yes. to get through. Yeah,
we have actually the same, that our art galleries in this building, that there's also a library, and it's fun that people who maybe normally wouldn't visit an art gallery, that they just might pop in and see something different or see something new and be inspired about it maybe. Well, we can talk a bit about diversity in art field in Sweden and Finland. And in your opinion, how diverse is the art field today? Are there a lot of diversity when it comes to gender in art, and different statements or voices, different masculinities and femininities and non-binary voices? And Illusia, you have the Finnish art scene as reference point. So what would you say about the diversity in the art?
Well, it's getting better, but there's also, of course, a lot of conservative power structures that unfortunately still exist in the Finnish society and the art field. So it's a reflection of what society is, and I think it would be lie to say that patriarchy doesn't affect the art scene, as it still is very much white, cis, and straight here in Finland. So it's not diverse enough, I think, but slowly, painfully slowly, it's changing.
And you, Hinni, as a Finnish artist you live and work here in Sweden, and you have studied art here in Sweden, right?
Yes.
So you can maybe compare Finnish and Swedish art fields.
Yes, I have studied art in Finland and here in Tampere, and then here in the Royal Institute of Art. And I agree with Illusia. I think it's the Nordic countries. I think it's on the same sort of level. I think the progress is there, but like Illusia said, it's painfully slow. There are of course a lot of artists and activists who are working a lot to make the change happen faster, and there's a lot of artist-run initiatives, for example. But yes, I think it's a reflection of the society, and I don't think there's some kind of maximum level of diversity that can be reached and then it's done. Like it's not like it should be continuing forever, I think.
So true.
Yeah.
And what about Sarah here in Sweden?
I would just agree with Hinni and Illusia, because as you say, I don't think there is this, now we're done.
No.
There's always, I think, it would be a constant struggle to be democratic and inclusive. And
But has there been more discussion lately about these themes and subject, or is it?
Sometimes I would say yes if I compare to the 90s when I was young, but at the same time maybe I didn't have the same possibilities as I have today of with internet and blah blah blah. I think you were much more isolated at the time. So maybe there were initiatives that I didn't know anything about. But sometimes I also feel that maybe you get around in a setting where most people maybe are interested in those questions and deals with these questions, and then you feel it's getting better, but then I feel that I don't have a total overview, and I still think
Yes, and then we can talk a bit more about body. There are many factors and matters that relate closely to gender and that build and produce also gender identity, and one of these is body. So we know that there are a lot of stereotypes about how a woman or man should look like, and what is masculine, what is feminine, what is the norm and stereotype and beauty ideal and so on. And I know, Hinni, that you work deal a lot of questions that has to do with body in your work, and you also want to smash bodily norms in your art. And we talked about this a bit before, but I wonder that are there enough different body types represented in the art nowadays, or should artists be more active in smashing these bodily norms and showing different body types? What do you think, Hinni?
I think that, like in relation to the other question that we talked about before, that it's the same answer, that there is no limit, that okay, now we have represented all the bodies in this world and now it's done, like that's not possible. So yes, but also I think if you're an artist and you work with bodily themes, I think that's good, and I'm interested in those kind of artworks and artistic practice, but also maybe some artists are not interested in talking about bodily subjects. Maybe they're talking about some other themes, and then maybe their body should not be, or their gender maybe should not be in such a focus in those situations. Maybe, I don't know. But yes, I think there should be, of course, the answer to your question, if there should be more different bodies represented, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. What do you say, Illusia?
Well, we have talked a lot about this with Hinni before, and for one example, that is that somehow it feels like that no matter what we produce, there is always, for example, fatness that is constantly present in our images as a part of the narrative. That norm-bodied artists are seen more of blank canvases to viewer to project themselves and their thoughts and interpretations into the artwork. That fatness makes it somehow less universal. And if you put queerness and gender non-conformity to that mix, it makes it even more specific. I think, like it narrows it down somehow, kind of.
Because now I have been working with the theme of sadness, and I have been making like sad self-portraits, but of course it's my fat body in these images still, so I don't know. I can't change that.
Yeah. So, do you have any comments, Sarah?
But somehow you wish there was a world where, maybe a little bit as we discussed before in the previous talk, but that wouldn't, that you wouldn't care that much about the body, that somehow, fat, non-fat, woman, man, it's a person with the, but of course, to reach those goals, we need to pinpoint.
Yeah, and maybe we need to talk about these questions today when we are on the way to that goal.
But I think sometimes it is difficult to does this artist want to be framed as queer? Of course, I would ask in that sense, but or is it maybe the other questions, that environmental questions or whatever the artist is working with, that are the focus? But of course, sometimes I think maybe it's the queerness is just there, or maybe a fat body, or another color, or it's just there, and then we focus on environmental questions or the painting, the style, whatever. But there is another body in the room somehow.
Yeah, and then I'd like to talk a bit about this body positivism, the acceptance of all kind of bodies, regardless their size, shape, appearance, physical ability, gender, or race. Body positivism has been quite current phenomenon in both countries. Maybe a bit more in Sweden than in Finland, or what do you think, Hinni?
I think body positivity has been, I think it's a very global phenomenon at the moment, and I think it's all over the world. And I think when I found about it as a teenager, I was very happy, and it has made my life during those years very much better. But nowadays, I would maybe, instead of I would call myself a radical body positivist. Do you say like a body positivist instead of just a body positivist? Because I think even that should be like more expanded more from the because there are also like hierarchies. Like now we have been talking a little bit about fatness, but of course like there are like also that is like a large topic, and you can like in that hierarchy be on a different level with another fat person. And I think that in radical body positivism, you try to demolish all the different hierarchies between different kind of bodies regarding weight or your able-bodiedness or other.
Yeah, there are many like, categories or like identities.
So I've grown out of body positivity to become a radical body positivist.
What would you say, Illusia? Do you have some comments?
I wouldn't talk about positivity. I would talk about like body neutrality instead. Kind of.
Could you explain body neutrality?
Body neutrality, kind of like body positivity brings up like this idea that we should be loving our bodies no matter what kind of bodies do we have, and especially in a society where, for example, fatness again is like society tells me that fat bodies are ugly, wrong, and should not be displayed or celebrated in any way. So kind of like asking to be positive about your body in that kind of environment is too much to ask. So I think neutrality is a better term, like body neutrality is a better term for it because of that kind of, it brings up like more into the equation, I think.
Yes, because I think like even if you hate your body, it shouldn't like it shouldn't make an effect on your value as a person, even if you struggle with your body because of whatever reason. Like I think it's maybe, and like I think in like radical body positivism, it's like trying to stop the actively hating your body, maybe.
Yeah.
So you will then be a body neutral person, maybe.
Yeah, and instead of like like that maybe we don't need to celebrate all the body types, but we need to leave them alone, kind of let them be. In a way, like that bodies are something that we should not. It shouldn't be a topic of discussion, anyone's body. Like I think it's rude and unnecessary to talk about people's bodies.
Yeah, you mentioned the term body peace.
Yeah, kehorauha, yes. Yeah.
Do you have any comments, Sarah?
I hadn't encountered this body neutrality. I think it was a fantastic, because I think it's crazy when you realize how much you all the time like think about your body and how it looks and what you do if you're dirty, clean, healthy, not healthy, fat, not fat. All this so much energy somehow. It's crazy. It's actually so. I think I would really take this body neutrality thing with me.
It's great. Great to learn new things.
Absolutely.
Yes, and then we could talk about this, that what do you think generally, is it important that artists are political and bring up issues like gender identity, norms and smashing to norms in their art? Is it important? I know that in Finland there has been recently vivid discussion about political art versus art that does not explicitly try to be political, maybe. So who would like to start? Maybe Illusia?
Well, yeah, there's been a discussion in Finland, like small discussion of it, not wide enough, I don't think, but I think it's about like privilege comes to the equation. Like I don't have the privilege not to be political. If I have a platform, I'm going to use it politically. I will use it to like highlight all the intersectional positions that affect me and that are very much present in my art as well, as they should be, I think. And for me personally, I'm not saying that art should be political, but I am not interested in non-political art. I am not interested in beauty or aesthetics, just aesthetics.
Yeah, I think the discussion in Finland has been a lot about this, that is it important that art is also aesthetical when it's political, that it shouldn't make some things that it shouldn't be only political if you then don't think anything about how it looks like and the way you express yourself then, if you understand how I mean. What do you think, Hinni?
I think it was very important what Illusia said, that you feel like you don't have the opportunity to choose not to be political. I think that's really nicely. I think it's very good statement that I was happy to hear it. And I think I'm making also political art, and I think art should be political. But I don't think there should be a comparison about like between like visual aesthetics. Like of course, like I think every artist thinks about how their art looks like. Also.
Yeah. So like kind of like
it's like what is this question? Like I'm working with images and pictures. Of course, I think about how they look like. Or, I don't know. Maybe someone doesn't do that, but yeah, I think it's.
That was a good point.
Yeah, like of course you're aware of the aesthetical decisions that you're making when you're making an artwork that looks like whatever. But of course, the artist is making those aesthetical choices all the time.
Yeah, and those choices are political, even though you think they are not political.
But somehow it's communication. So, and I think somehow what is not political, and I think to choose not to make political art is somehow also a political statement.
Yes.
And I think, as a curator, for example, you can take an artist and put it in a certain setting that becomes political, or it's also depending on what you have in society around you. But even something very aesthetical can be very political in a certain setting. So, and a certain, I think, like a queer aesthetics, or I think that people maybe tend to think are something ugly, or so that the aesthetic thing can be really political in itself, I think.
Yes.
But in the end, I think it's what you communicate, and when you communicate with other people in society, somehow you're in a political setting.
Any comments to this? Then we can go to my next question. What do you think? What kind of platforms do artists have at their disposal to help them create and strengthen their identity, except through art, then of course? I have noticed, for example, that in social media, some artists are very active, and especially in Instagram. What would you say? What kind of platforms do artists have? Hinni?
I think, you mentioned Instagram. I think Instagram is a popular platform. There's a lot of artists who are very active there. And then I think also different kind of artist-run initiatives are important.
Can you tell a bit about those?
At the moment, I have my studio in Detroit, Stockholm, and we're 20 artists, and we have an artist-run gallery and a studio space. So I think that is, for me, a very important platform because I'm there and I meet my fellow artists there. And then in Finland, there are other artist-run communities where I have been part of who are self-organized, and I think that those are important moments where you can gather some energy together, work together. I think that's nice.
Maybe it's like somehow fruitful to work in a group.
Yes. Yeah.
What would you say, Sarah?
I would agree with Hinni that this kind of artists, I think a lot of the change that has came about in the art world comes from artists engaging in a question and working together and empowering each other more than, let's say, from a institutional, Yeah. And so as in working in an institution, I think maybe what I can do is free space to do and choose what art we can buy and in that sense promote, and of course that's both power and political somehow. Maybe I got a little bit out of the, the question.
But what about you, Illusia? Are you active in Instagram, for example, or do you use social media for your art?
Yes, I think my social media is mostly an tool for me. I think I recently started to not be so personal because when I've got more followers, it makes it kind of more frightening to put very personal stuff up there. But I think I follow social media kind of discussions on YouTube that are not necessarily related to art or art field. I have my collective of artists and friends are usually we like me and Hinni, we talk every day about art and have conversations about it, and with my colleagues and friends here in Helsinki also. But for me, social media has been a very important tool to broaden my understanding and get more information that helps me to dismantle these structures in my own life and thinking. And YouTubers like ContraPoints and Cat Black, for example, have been a very valuable resource for me. And maybe from Instagram, there's Aubrey Gordon, your fat friend. Her Instagram has given me a lot of energy to keep going and deconstruct my own internalized fat phobia. And there's really interesting conversations happening there. I think it's a very good tool to create powerful movements and distribute information that is otherwise ignored by the mainstream media.
Well, then I go to my next question. I wonder if you have any tips or recommendations of interesting artists or exhibitions that deal with gender or body in a fresh, inspiring. There's something you want to tell us about?
I think it's hard to say that and that, because I think there's so many people doing fantastic work. But maybe a little bit, as you said before, Hinni, I think there's a lot of groups that have been very important for I think, for example, Brown Island at Konsthall, or even the Unstraight Museum was early on in Sweden with working with queer issues and stuff like that. And I think these kind of the Swedish the Swedish Archive for Queer Moving Images, and this kind of
Swedish Archive for
Queer Moving Images, and this initiative called Rosa Brus that it quite recently started. They collect audio material that somehow connects to some queer setting and as the voice or the sound as a carrier of queer history. And I think there's, I don't know.
What do you have, Hinni? Some.
I would like to bring up from Finland. I would like to bring up Camilla Auer and her artistic practice, and then here from Stockholm, Victoria Versau. I think they have amazing works, and everyone should take a look.
Great.
Yeah.
What do you want to recommend, Lucia?
I want to recommend Jenni-Julia Wallinheimo-Heimonen. She's a political disability artist and activist here in Finland, and her work is amazing.
Great.
And Camilla Auer also, same as Hinni.
Yeah. Do you have any other, Sarah?
We had an exhibition called I Want to Seduce You with Louise Blad, and that deals with the archive of a British lesbian activist. So, you know, I could mention a lot, but now I choose Louise because we just worked with her. So I think check her out.
Yeah, that exhibition sounded really interesting. And now it's time for my last question, actually. Is there something that you would like to change in the art field and in the art world when it comes to gender issues? Any last words or points of views? Illusia, do you want to start?
Yeah, it would be like I would like to increase funds in the art field, specifically money for the artists to live as they work. The current funding system, I think, is insufficient and usually modeled for very short-term projects. And then kind of you have like this 3 months of grant working, and then you just fall back into poverty and desperation, and that's not healthy, and that's not a good place to be creative. So I think that would be a really good thing to fix. And of course, like make diversity the norm in all sectors of our field, like even like the higher up in the hierarchy as you go, like it should start from up there.
About Hinni?
Yes, can you please say what was your...
Is there something that you would like to change in the art field and art world when it comes to gender issues?
When it comes to gender issues. Well, I was thinking about this yesterday. I think it should be important to not have this gender inequality in the art world as it is present in the society. So I think it's the same questions that we face on other everyday situations that are just mirrored in the field of contemporary art. So I think like the gender inequality, I think that's it's a fact that it's there and it should not be there.
I think art is such a powerful tool of communication somehow, and I think it's I wish that society at large would see how important art is in so many settings and important for people's well-being and for being able to imagining a better world. And I think that, you know, a society that takes care of its artists somehow and doesn't see art as a kind of luxury consumption thing, but a necessary way of thinking and dealing with the world.
Intrinsic value of art.
Wise words. Well, thank you so much for our panelists. This has been a super interesting discussion, and I think we could have continued even more. And big thanks also to all our viewers. It has been really lovely to have you here with us, and we hope to see you soon again. So bye-bye and have a good evening.